Hey, Steve here, your DIY dude. Today we're going to be pulling the transmission out of our 2006 Honda Civic. So put away your wallets and bust out your tools, because we are doing it ourselves.
Let me just run you through some of the tools we got going on here that we're going to be using. We got a 1/2-inch impact, a torque wrench, breaker bar, some extensions, a little air chuck to blow out the bell housing on the transmission. Got a ratchet so you don't have to sit there and ratchet all your bolts out. That thing will just drive them out pretty quickly. Little jack, some jack stands. That's the big bad boy jack that we're going to be using to get the car up, and then we'll be throwing up on the jack stands. Little oil pan for the transmission fluid that we're going to be draining. Little bottle jack. We've got a 1/2-inch socket set. A little pry bar to get the CV axles out. A rubber mallet to get the pilot bushing out. A little Crescent tool set. Amazon. It's been a lifesaver. I have to remove this this piece of plastic housing in here. Take off these plastic rivets. Take them out, and then we can start working on the subframe. You got these two guys in here that you're gonna have to remove to get that panel off. You have two 12mm bolts that are holding on the bottom of this battery tray. They're kind of a pain to get to. So if you're looking from the top, you have one in this top corner, and then you have one in this top corner right underneath these lips. And that's the way you're gonna have to get this guy out. This is how the battery tray is sitting in there. So if you were to take a look at the bottom of it, these are the two bolts that are hiding that you're gonna have to get to. Basically everything on this transmission is going to have to get removed. You're going to have to remove this airbox. Probably one of the easiest ways to get this airbox out is once you undo this little clamp right here and the clamp on this guy, you're going to wiggle it out off those two lines, and then you're going to pull it straight up and out. It's gonna want to hit on this cover, so you're gonna have to pull this cover up a little bit just to get it to pull all the way free. If you guys want a little tip on how to organize your bolt, you get a piece of cardboard, you put little holes in them, and write on the bolt what they are and where they go. That way when you go to put this thing back together, we're not scrounging around to figure out which bolts go where, because that's a nightmare. Make sure we want to get all this grounding wires out. We got this grounding wire right here. Get this clutch line going to your slave cylinder right there that we're gonna have to pull off. Gotta get this wiring harness out of the way, and we gotta remove this shifter linkage. Once you get these 3 shifter linkage bolts out, you got one right there, one to the right side, right there, and then one under here, right there, number 3. And so once you get those cotter pins pulled, and you get those 3 bolts out, you should be able to just pull this whole shifter linkage out of the way. There you go. See how it moves? You just pull it back into this open recess right here. If you want to pull this plug off the transmission, pop, just like that. And it looks like it's got a couple holding plastic connectors that are gonna need to come off as well. Yeah, right there. We're gonna be breaking loose 4 of these subframe bolts. So looking from the front passenger side, that's the front corner of the subframe, lower subframe. That's the driver's side, lower subframe. And then come towards the back of the car on the driver's side. You got number 3 coming over, and you got number 4, so just crack those loose. These 4 subframe corner bolts are gonna be 17 millimeters. All right, so once you crack these 4 corner bolts loose, don't take them out. I'm gonna go ahead and put a tie-down strap on the steering linkage. All right, so for the steering linkage, you're gonna have to tie it off. So I just have some tie straps, wrapped them around each steering linkage, because when you drop this subframe, the steering linkages are gonna wanna come down with it. Be careful when you're wrapping your tie straps through your engine block that you're not putting them around any type of tubes that are gonna snap, or any hoses that are flexible. Try to keep the pressure and weight off just fragile items that are in your engine bay. So try to get as best you can. I just tied them to this engine mount right here, and hopefully that's gonna hold them for now. Because if you drop your steering linkage, you're gonna have to get a realignment and all that fun stuff. So let's try to stay out of that ballpark. All right, guys. Work on the lower control arm bolts. You got 1, 2, 3 on both sides. So let's get those out real quick. Give me 17 millimeter bolts right down here. Just break them loose. And you can ratchet them out. We're gonna go to these 2 bolts on the sides and the wheel wells. So you're gonna take, these are just through bolts. You got 17 millimeter. If you have a 1/2 inch impact gun, it's gonna make it a lot easier to get out. Put an extension on there, reach it in, and let's get it out. After we remove those 2 wheel well bolts, we're gonna come in under the engine, and you got this engine mount. All right, next we're going to be removing this clamp off the steering linkage. So it's got 2 14 millimeter bolts on either side. Go ahead and take those guys out. All right, so this back 14, that's holding up the steering linkage. I just have a 3/8 drive, and then I have a 16-inch socket, or 60 millimeter socket, with a couple extensions tied together to get some leverage. And then I connect the 16-inch to the 3/8 drive, and that's the way I got leverage to basically create your own breaker bar. So if you don't have a breaker bar, a 3/8 one on the back of the subframe and one on the front of the subframe. And then go ahead and finish pulling out those 4 subframe bolts, those main 17 millimeters. And we're gonna slowly start to lower this guy. Start to take out the 4 corner bolts. Take out these 4 corner bolts right here. You got one right here, one on the back side. They're 17 millimeter, 2 on the passenger side as well. So 2 on the driver's side. Take out these 17 millimeter bolts. Make sure and pop this piece out real quick with the flathead, just to get it to be smooth so you can undo it. Just gonna get that metal to sit outside of that hole. There you go. So just get a small screwdriver in there, flathead. Push that out so you can unscrew it. I'm not sure what the metric equivalent is, but this is an 1 1/4 1/2-inch socket that fits on this. It's not a perfect fit, but it'll work. There you go. You can use whatever tool you think will work, but using a little pry bar, using a rubber mallet, tapping it in to the back of the CV axle and prying it out. I get this passenger side CV axle out of the transmission housing. You're gonna have to take out these 3 14 bolts right here. 1 and 2 and try to get that loose. You got to take out your passenger CV axle. It's going to be connected right here, this half shaft. Pull the spline out of the wheel hub. You're going to have to get a hammer, knock it free from this spline, and then you have to undo 3 bolts. 1, 2, and 3. There's 2 on top. Undo those 3 bolts. And this shaft is going to come out of the transmission. And so just pull it free from the transmission.
Alright, so the next step is going to be removing the transmission. Make sure you got everything disconnected from the top of the transmission, your shifter linkages, all the wiring harnesses, your ground wires, your slave cylinder hose is connected right there. So we got to remove this bracket right here. Go ahead and start removing those things. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and remove this bracket right here to help us get the transmission out. So you got 3 10mm bolts right there.
Go ahead and remove this black bracket right here. It's on the bottom of the transmission. 3 10mm bolts. Alrighty, let's start removing some of these transmission bolts. We got a 17 right there, one right there, one right here. Just work your way around, and we're gonna have the last 2 bolts are gonna be on the top of the transmission. Those are gonna be some tight bolts. Alright, that was a pain. Alright, so these transmission bolts are a pain in the ass. I got 140,000 miles on my car, but for some reason these are seasoned pretty good. What seemed to work is get a 1/2 inch impact, back it out as far as you can with the impact, spray some WD-40, go forward with the bolt all the way till it's flush, and kind of just work it back and forth until you get WD-40 all the way through those threads. I'm still having issues with getting this bottom bolt out. As you can see, these exhaust bolts are in the way. You can't really get a good socket on the back side of this, so I'm just using a 1/2 inch breaker bar and slowly working it out. I'm just terrified of breaking that bolt off, especially in the tranny housing. That would suck. So trying to work it out slowly and surely, spraying WD-40 on the back side, pushing it forward, and then pulling it back out and spraying WD-40 on both sides. So if you have another rust penetrant that works good, use that as well. So slowly but surely, just try to use caution with these bolts and try not to break them off, because that's just gonna be more work than it's worth. That one's a little tough to get to. You got the exhaust right behind that bolt, so a little crescent, a socket, and a little extension. Make yourself a little breaker bar. Hopefully you don't find this problem on yours, but this bottom bolt right here that's on the very bottom of the transmission, pulling it out, it's definitely stripped in the middle of the threads, and I don't know what happened, because I didn't put this, I don't think this tranny's ever been taken out, so either rust buildup or something that happened inside the threads and definitely jacked up that bolt and made it a pain to get out.
So we're on the back of the transmission where the CV axle, the passenger side CV axle connects in. You want to make sure you take off this connector, this electrical connector, and then you got one more bolt right here you have to undo. It's just a little push pin right here. Push that guy and then pull it back out. I used a 1/2-inch breaker bar to break this bolt loose on the back of the transmission, a 17mm. After you get those 3 bolts undone on the bottom of the transmission, make sure you put a jack under the transmission before you loosen these bolts and back them out. You got a 17 right here, and then under there you got a 17 right here, so there's 2. Let's go ahead and break these 2 top guys loose, 2 17s. All right, take 10. Oh my gosh. This project is a pain in the ass when you're trying to figure out how to do it. All right, hopefully this video is gonna save you the headaches that I'm going through, kind of the bonehead moves that I've got going on. So I was dropping the transmission. You got this bracket on here that I thought would be able to clear. I don't know why I thought that, but it's not gonna clear for the transmission to come out. So you gotta take out these 4, I think they're 17mm. 1, 2, 3, I think is actually that's all that's holding on that bracket. So take those 3 out. Once you get those 3 out, then you're cleared. Definitely not the most ideal way to drop a tranny, but man. There we go. Tranny's out. Let's see how heavy this sucker is. There we go. Nice and easy. Alright. Get her done. Oh boy. Definitely gonna clean that sucker out.